for August. We do not have a quorum for this meeting, but I guess we'll let the record show that Melody Jones and Jake Palmer are in attendance, as well as John Nail with the City of Westfield. Agendas are in front of you. It's very light. Melody and I were both kind of laughing about how meager the agenda is, but I did want to provide both of you an update on the bid opening for the 102 South Union renovation work. And before I provide the update, I do want to let you know I have not spoken to Mark DeLossi yet. I plan on giving him a call tomorrow or Friday to talk over the same stuff. And I would just add, I want him to hear the information from me first. I know you've talked to Mark before, but I'd rather him hear it from me first before you talk to him. So, but DeLossi, yep, from Indiana Landmarks, yep. So let me give you the update, and then I'll kind of explain kind of what next steps are going to be. So we had a bid opening for the renovation work on 102 South Union on August 1st. The scope of that work included not the physical moving of the structure up Union Street, but everything else. So excavation of the basement, pouring basement walls, and coordinating with Wolf building movers so that that basement foundation matched the means and methods they would use to move the building. And then all the renovation required for that building to bring it to essentially a retail-worthy space. ADA compliant. ADA compliant on the first floor for commercial use. There was an apartment planned on the second floor. That was going to be stairs. There was not going to be an elevator, but that would be stairs driven. That was still per building code because it was residential use. So yeah, new HVAC, new plumbing, new electricals, drywall, all of those things, and being very context sensitive with respect to the architecture, bringing it back to the period of significance for the building. So we worked with Pat Jacobs of Architecture Trio for those plans and specs, and we opened bids on August 1st. We only had one bidder, that was Brandt Construction. Now that was, we were happy to see Brandt bid on it. They did some similar work at 236th Street as part of the US 31 project for that interchange. There was a historic building that got actually deconstructed and reconstructed on a different location up there. And they did that work. NDOT was very happy with their work. And so they clearly had good experience in this type of work. So we were happy to see them bid. Obviously, you never want to see just one bidder. You want to get as many as you can. We expected that work to come in around $1 million. Their bid was $2.39 million. So that was not a pleasant Friday for me as I opened the bids and read them aloud. And what we are doing is we will be, like I said, this is where I have not relayed this information to Mark DeLossi yet, but I plan on calling him yet this week to explain what's going on, as well as our DHPA, so Chad Slider, who has worked with us on this project, make him aware of the situation, and to talk through with our advisory team on the project what they would prefer us to do moving forward.
And this cost does not include moving it?
Correct. Yeah, correct.
So, and how much is that? It's like
all in, our moving cost is about $95,000. So we've already paid half of that for the initial move, and then we still owe about $45,000.
So why 2.3?
So on that update, we did have a meeting with Brandt to go through their bid and look at, are there value engineering options? Why is this bid so high? Where did we misestimate the costs? What it came down to was there was a lot of labor involved in one of the main structural issues with the building as it sits today is there are timber sill plates on the bottom of the building that have rotted out in some places. These timber beams, for lack of a better word, were exposed to water, ground, runoff, exposed directly to soil, and in areas where water sat next to them, they rotted out over time. And so part of that work, that sill plate is really holding up the rest of the load-bearing walls.
Right.
The reason that the building sits vertically today and is not fallen down is because we, the City of Westfield Street Department, went in and built new load-bearing walls about 2 feet inside of the existing exterior walls to support that structure. So we did cross bracing. We basically built brand new load-bearing walls on the inside that connected directly to the floor joists. And we coordinated that with Wolf, knowing where their beams are going to be and so forth. So for the long-term structural integrity of the building, those sill plates need to be replaced. And to replace them in a way that both, the timber type of sill plate, but also like shoring it so that it could be replaced before it gets moved, was going to be, according to Brandt, incredibly labor intensive. And that was where a bulk of their costs, they said, came from. Of course, there's also some risk involved with the building. It's not in great shape. I'm sure they built that into their bid, but their main reason for the high cost was just the amount of labor involved in some of those structural pieces before the building could be moved.
Well, typically labor is 60% of the cost of a building, but on a renovation like this, it's probably so labor heavy. It's probably like 75%. I would imagine. There's just because with those plates, they probably have to lift. They have to lift it up, right?
Yeah.
To replace it,
they got a jacket. Yeah, exactly. And that's what they described. And so so it was good to get an understanding where their costs were coming from. We still have, I think, 60 days that we could award or not award the bid. I have not talked directly with the mayor about it, but I don't think that the administration is overly eager to spend that kind of money on renovation.
No.
And we feel, it's my opinion, but I need to get some buy-in from hopefully Mark DeLacy and the state. But my view is that spending money, because one of the options in our MOA is if the building can't be moved, we create a mitigation fund. And we create a mitigation fund that can be used for renovation and improvement projects to historic properties in the Westfield downtown district. My opinion is that taxpayer dollars will go a lot further and be better spent using it for a variety of mitigation projects in our downtown versus one building being renovated.
Which is falling apart. No.
Which is falling apart.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
So the budget was around $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can't imagine the city coming up with another $1.3 million to accommodate.
Why would you?
this, so-
Why would you want to?
Well, and keep in mind, NDOT is going 50-50 on it with us, so it would really be us coming
Really?
up.
I thought it was all on us.
No, it's part of the project, so NDOT
I'm sorry to interrupt, but we need people talking to the mic if anybody's going to be able to hear what the questions are that's being asked.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you, Chris. Apologies. The question from Melody was, would the city have to come up with another 1.3? So with this project, NDOT is participating 50-50 on mitigation costs as well, because that is directly related to the road construction. And so it would be half of that the city would be coming up with. But still, I think NDOT would probably, well, I don't want to speak for NDOT, but I will say I feel that investment of money would be better suited for mitigation funding. And candidly, that mitigation fund could be used to help fund this preservation commission as well. So like theoretically, that mitigation fund would be, you guys would be the folks overseeing that mitigation fund, approving projects and approving grants from that mitigation fund, potentially, assuming the advisory team's on board with that, towards projects in the downtown district, which I feel like is a good use of the taxpayer dollars. But like I said, I need to get the advisory team on board, or at least get their feedback before we can go that direction.
So I know a lot of, I'm sorry, Jake, I'm kind of domineering this. So I know that we were required to be established as part of this project. Was saving that building an absolute, or was it, if it can't be done, a little gray area there?
It was considered one of the primary mitigation items in our agreement. However, I think everyone that was talking about it understood that we didn't know what we didn't know with respect to the structural integrity of the building. And so we have a paragraph in that agreement that says if, and there's a couple reasons why the building can't be moved. If it can't be moved, then this second option of mitigation funding is like the remedy for that, essentially. Now, we always, I guess, anticipated, like, can the building not be moved because it's just structurally deficient to be able to be moved? Are there logistical issues, unforeseen conditions that we didn't know about that prevent it from being moved? And then there's a kind of a catch-all phrase in there that says, or other circumstances, basically. And we wrote that specifically because we just didn't know what we didn't know at this point. Now, I would really like to get the advisory team to agree that this mitigation fund is a better option. I don't know that they will, but I'm going to have those conversations later this week and into next week with the advisory team to get some consensus there.
And who's on the advisory team?
So Mark DeLacy, Linda Nass, Judy Shuck, Chad Slider from State Historic Preservation Office, and then Jennifer Beck and myself are on it from the design team. Steve Latour was on it in his previous role with the DWA, but since he left that role, he's no longer on it. But that was the main group. Okay. Cliff Bradley was the original owner of the building. He would participate in the advisory team. He hasn't recently participated. Once NDOT bought the property, he didn't seem to want to participate anymore. I'll still reach out to him, but he's also on the advisory team.
Gotcha. Okay.
What's the timeline look like for a decision on this? And what was the original timeline that was anticipated? And
yeah, we had it was still, we were beholden to Duke to get their overhead electric lines buried. That timeline is going to be ongoing this fall. And so the way the contract was structured and the way Brandt bid this project, we wanted the building the basement to be poured and ready for the building to be moved as early as I think October 1st. Which they said was doable, and that was really an estimate on when Duke would be underground at that point, and we'd have a clear path. And then we gave them till the end of 2026 to have the renovation done. So we had ample time for renovation work. The critical path was getting that building moved over to the basement foundation that needed to be constructed so that it could clear the way for our contractor to continue working on 32.
And the location is still across the alley from the Playhouse, right?
Yep, it's right over here. Yep.
you know, part of me wonders with something like this where there's always unforeseens and the market just continues to be crazy with bidding. I mean, escalation and, you know, obviously just even the thought of tariffs continues to impose cost increases. But I mean, you know, there's always the opportunity to say you could still do some kind of like educational component with this building, you know, like there's a small, I don't know exactly how that would fit into the 32 project, but there's some kind of marker and, you know, something about the building that, you know, look, there was due diligence, good faith effort was put into trying to make this project work, but the reality is it was a good intentions met with really hardship in terms of the economic climate and what we encountered with the bidding environment. One
of the ideas that we had too on the design team side was potentially if we could do some type of, for lack of a better term, like a large shadow box of some kind. Because one of the coolest features of the building is the hand-hewn beams in the attic. If we could, again, if we go the route of a mitigation fund and ultimately that building has to get demoed, we salvage some of those hand-hewn beams, maybe some pieces of the building that we put into a display and display it somewhere with the original pictures and all that, and maybe there's a paragraph of the significance of it. I think that would be a really cool piece that we could display. So that was just something we had thought about as well.
I mean, I think that's the best possible outcome of alternatives is you're still preserving part of the structure. I mean, the reality is it's just, anytime you're trying to move a building like this and it's going to have to sit somewhere and you have to deal with an electrical relocate or electrical utility project, it's the nature of the beast. But I think that's a great idea. If there's a way to take some of the materials from the original project and incorporate it into.
So that's where we stand right now. I'll have more information once we can kind of talk through the advisory team and get a plan in place on that.
I have one more question about
sure.
the project. So who's the intended owner of it when it's all said and done, or operator of it when it's all said and done?
It would have been the city of Westfield owning it with a protective covenant over that building as a historic building.
Was there any, I guess, intended use for it? Is it going to be?
We were designing it to be able to be like, it could have been a retail shop of some kind. It could have been like an ice cream parlor. It had some functionality, some flexible functionality with respect to how the interior was designed.
Yeah.
it was not going to be like a full-scale restaurant or anything like that, but it certainly had the ability to be a retail shop.
Okay. I didn't know if it was going to be considered, and that's something I guess I would bring up later, maybe not tonight when everybody is here, is what does this historic district look like, and what do we want to add to or preserve or do with? So I wondered what the intention was.
Yep.
Thanks.
Yep, of course. So just quickly on the 32 project, we still are in good shape as far as progress being made. And we obviously have Union Street north-south open back up, which was good. We have the box culvert that went in between, or just to the east of the Union Square parking garage and just to the west of the car dealership. That is in place now. That was a big, we got some pictures of pretty large box culvert, big crane in the middle of 32, installing those. And so we are still on track at this point to open 32 east-west between Union and Poplar in October. We're still on track for that. Duke is a little bit behind schedule on their relocation. They ran into some underground cable supply issues apparently, but they are working to mitigate those issues and catch back up to continue their relocation efforts. So. Contractor's been great to work with thus far, and some pretty good progress in spite of some utility conflicts here and there that we've run into. But progress has been good.
So when they open that up, John, I mean, there's going to still be an awful lot of work to be done, all the streetscape and stuff like that. Will there be partial closings when those? I'm thinking of landscaping medians and that kind of stuff.
There may be some very short-term closings. I don't want to say there's not going to be any. We don't expect any long-term closings once we open that back up to traffic. Essentially, one lane each direction will be open on the north side of 32, so they can complete the widening work on the south. And then once that's done, traffic will get flipped onto the newly constructed south side, and they can come in and finish out the existing side. So yeah, we don't anticipate any. I will say it's going to be a construction zone for all of 2026 still as they're finishing this project out, of course. But you will get east-west traffic still going. I think all in all, I don't want to speak for businesses. I'm sure the businesses have struggled during the closure. But I think that traffic flow has been maybe less catastrophic than people maybe anticipated with the closure. Especially once we got Union Street open north-south, there were some kind of clear cut-arounds you could use, and then people used the official detour route pretty well. Particularly, not all, but a lot of semi-trucks did follow the State Route 38 detour around it, which is good. It doesn't help that every other community in Hamilton County also has many closures at the same time. So Noblesville has a pretty significant closure on 32 right now.
Yeah.
So all of those things are kind of working against us, but I would say the project has moved forward fairly well at this point. So,
What about, I don't know, we're calling it East Street Extension, or what I don't know what we're calling it. So what's the status of that? Because I guess I always thought that
the
would
Jersey Street, on the
tie
south
together.
side, it will. That will be a project that we will construct later once 32 is open, completely open to traffic.
So it's not going to happen while.
Yeah, it's not going to happen all at once because access for some of those houses on the south side would be borderline impossible during construction. Field would be right in the middle of it. And so what we're looking to do is push that construction timeline back a little bit on Jersey Street. We also have a Cherry Street Bridge reconstruction project just south of there that we're finalizing some design on. So those two projects could potentially go on at the same time. Once 32 was done. Yeah, once 32 was done, though.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
that is the game plan at this point. So next up is just open discussion. So any other topics you guys want to touch on? I know there's not a robust agenda, so we got some time here if you guys have any discussion items.
Yeah, I mean, really, the thing that's still out there is just the district map. Just the survey and all of that, and it's like you like me have infinite amount of time to
Yeah, right.
to plug into doing that, and
Do anything extra?
it's not. Yeah, I mean, I think I'm just thinking of it does need to be done. Obviously, it's we need to have something that's on record that says we adopt it. I mean, because it gets created, it gets, I don't know, somebody introduces it, we introduce it, and it gets adopted.
And it would be part of the comp plan, I would assume,
Yeah, I would think so.
yeah, which is being worked on.
I mean, is, just speaking broadly and in general terms, is it as simple as taking there was already a document done that had a map, right? And then,
Yep.
using, if we have a monthly meeting on the books, if there's no actual agenda items, using that as a work session to just move that item forward.
I mean, I've lived in downtown Westfield since dirt was invented. But a lot of people don't know downtown and really don't know whether there's still a building standing there or it was the site. So I'm going to use Asa Bale's store, I mean, we know where it stood in his barn, but they're not there anymore. I wonder if it wouldn't be advantageous for the four, if we end up becoming a council of five, to just do a little walking tour, maybe when the weather's a little nicer.
When it's not hot.
Not sort of not.
Fall in Indiana is usually much nicer than.
Yeah, exactly.
October's a great month.
Yeah, and just take that map,
Yep.
but then decide, do we need to, shrink it or expand it? And if there's significant locations, whether it's an existing building or just a significant place that we should be calling out. Because I do think, when I remember looking at that, which was several months ago,
Yeah.
there were things that I thought were blatantly left off, that, in my opinion, should have been on it. The anti-slavery cemetery, for one.
Yeah.
So,
Well, the nice thing is, like, some of the legwork has been done for us with the
Yeah.
national nomination, and so if we need to just edit or revise that map that was included to include some other properties, I think we have the ability to do so. And I think a walking tour would be really good.
I second that idea. I think it's a great suggestion. I do think, October might be a better option, maybe
Yeah.
even September, but I
Makes
mean.
I'm going to make a note
Yeah.
for October because I do think October.
I think that, October, it should be about 20 degrees cooler, or 10
at
degrees cooler.
least, yeah, thank goodness.
Yeah.
Might even have to have a sweater on,
Yeah, yeah.
and not because the air conditioning is set at 64. I carry a sweater with me everywhere I go because
Yeah,
you're
well,
outside and
yeah,
you're sweating, and you come
exactly.
inside and you're freezing.
Yep.
John, was there anything in your mind that you feel that we should be addressing that maybe we haven't?
I haven't heard of anything like, I mean, one of the things that we haven't adopted an official map yet, but also there haven't really been any redevelopment projects, to my knowledge, that have really significantly, I want to be careful with my words here, because I guess nothing that like threatens the demolition of a known historic building at this point, right? So it's not like we're not missing anything from that perspective as of right now. I do work closely with the community development as zoning comes through or potential projects come through. So if it's something where there's an imminent project moving forward and we need to act quickly, I will make sure you guys are aware of that in advance. But I do think we still have some time based on what I'm
Yeah.
hearing to adopt something to get a boundary. in
Possible
place.
if we do the walking tour in October and we can use that time, identify it, and
Yep.
adopt it in November.
Yep.
Before the end of the year.
Before the end of the year?
Yeah.
Yep,
seems
it
like a
is,
word.
I do think you adopt it and then it is for council to approve.
Yeah, yeah.
So there'll be probably maybe a two meeting process with
Sure.
council, introduction and then a public hearing and
So,
adoption, so,
first of the year,
Yeah.
perhaps it's adopted.
I think
that
so.
seems totally realistic.
yep, so,
So, I suppose this is public, right? People are listening.
it is, or they could be, yeah.
Listening. I'm just curious if we circle back to this whole idea of creating this fund. Worst case scenario, we can't save Erica's. So we establish this fund. Does the state also maybe contribute to
They
that
do.
fund?
It would still be 50-50 within
Okay.
that. So what, so basically it would be a 50-50 contribution, half from the city, half from NDOT. Ideally, maybe, because we don't have any formal funding in this 2025 budget for this commission.
Right.
But potentially if the advisory team was agreeable to it, maybe there's a small amount of that fund that gets contributed towards if we needed to hire a consultant, for example, to put together the documentation for the boundary, or we needed to consult with a historic architecture expert beyond Jake's expertise or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'd have some funding available potentially from that mitigation fund. And then importantly, I think the bulk of that, and I'm just spitballing on this, I don't know if that advisory team is going to go for that or not, but I would foresee this body ultimately choosing projects to support with that mitigation fund and a grant amount. I would foresee applicants coming before you, explaining the project, asking for X amount of money towards it, and then importantly, making sure that that money is utilized in the way they say they're going to utilize it as well. So
Yeah. Preservation police.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What about you, Jay? What do you think we need to be thinking about?
Yeah, I mean, with in the absence of having any specific, projects or call to action on anything, that would have been the biggest one a year ago. Erica said we have been, I'd have been in front of us at the bodyman meeting, but I think I feel like through the process of doing this walking tour, which is a great idea, by the way, and I think, we use the next meeting, if that's October, we meet, adopt it in November, or we say this is it, it'll illuminate some things, and as we think about redevelopment, it's sort of this back and forth with the comprehensive plan.
Right.
Yep.
Because that's supposed to be adopted next year, correct?
Yep.
So, yeah, I would think we'd want that to be part of it, at least in the downtown section.
yeah, I would expect there to be basically an appendix to that comprehensive plan that would go into detail on downtown, especially downtown, but also historic areas where we expect preservation to occur.
I just have one more question.
Go ahead.
Sorry. Do you see us impacting any other area of Washington Township from a historical point? And the reason I say that is because you were talking about the house earlier that was on, North 31 that ended up getting moved. Would that be, or is our focus strictly on the downtown area?
It could be anything within I believe the ordinance is written such that it could be anywhere within City of Westfield zoning, which is all of Washington Township.
Yeah.
Now, I need to double check and make sure it's not just within the city boundaries, because those two things are different. But we don't, our focus is not just the Westfield Historic District. There could be other properties that we would want to preserve as well.
Because there's some pretty cool things out there.
There are. And maybe it's a two-phase thing. Maybe you adopt the downtown district now, and then, potentially we have a consultant or someone to look at some other
Identify.
historically significant properties in Washington Township.
Cool. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, I started going somewhere, and then you just had me, what you said just actually triggered a thought. Is there anything outside, so we do this walking tour, and it's around, the downtown area. Is there anything around Graham Park that is so unique or so, I know there was there was a family,
the Lindley,
Yeah.
Chatham.
Yep.
The
is
Lindley
built
house
on
is what,
Lindley
yeah.
Farm. The barn, Hinkie has done a really good job of, completely renovated it, so it's not really historic anymore, but the house is still there, and that dates way back.
Yep.
Lindley came here I want to say it was in the 1840s, so it was right after Westfield became a community.
that
All
was the
kinds of
first,
stories about
that was the
'cause-
first property that came in my head as well, was the Lindley property.
Yeah, exactly, me too, Lindley. And then, but there's other places too, and, just like they discovered the Barker cabin sitting out on property that Rotabush owned, in a barn. A barn was built over it to preserve it, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's things like that. I think it would be kind of cool in a future meeting, maybe before we would adopt anything for the entire township or city limits, to have maybe somebody from the Historical Society come in, because believe me, they've done inventories after inventories after inventories, and Jim and Diana Payton would be phenomenal.
I was just thinking about them as well, yeah.
Would be phenomenal to speak to us about that.
Yep.
They could give us the addresses and who owned it from, the beginning of time. The Roberts is another, they're Tom Roberts. Well, his dad's still alive too, but they're an original family. They go all the way back.
Yep.
And they're still here. They're up on, is it Grassy Branch? I can't remember what road, but their homestead is still there and they still live on it.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. So there's things like that.
Yep, agreed.
Yeah.
Anything else discussion-wise before we adjourn?
Nope. I don't have anything else.
Nope.
For tonight.
I guess, just to be official, why don't one of you making a motion to adjourn and the other second? So that-
Nope. Am I allowed to as the
Oh,
president?
well, I'll
Yeah.
make a motion that we adjourn
Okay,
tonight,
I guess I have to do the second
whatever
Yep.
it is, 5.
at 5:38. Yep,
All right, we are adjourned.
all right, there we go.
Thanks,
Thank
Chris.
you.
Bye, Chris.
Yep, bye.
Bye.
He's in cyber, he's out there somewhere.